This is FD Talks, a brand new podcast series by Funeral Directors Life, where we explore ideas, insights, and solutions for serving families in a rapidly changing marketplace. We're here with Nadine Smith with Funeral Directors Life, and I've known Nadine for a little longer probably than I've for a lot longer than I've actually worked with Funeral Directors Life. But Nadine, why don't you start at the beginning and tell us who you are and what you do here?
Thanks so much, Rob. This is a lot of fun to be able to talk about where I work and just the different aspect of what I've learned over the last 10 years. And so I didn't know much about funeral services prior to coming to Funeral Directors Life. And 10 years ago when I stepped in, I really didn't know a lot about funeral services. And so on this side of it, it was amazing what I learned about how owners, funeral directors, funeral staff work with families. And I had a life-altering experience. My husband actually was sick several years ago. And one morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, I kissed him goodbye and we agreed to meet up for lunch. And that never happened because he had an incident where he collapsed at his work. And that started a 12-week process for myself and my family of really staring death in the face. That's really what it was for us. And so I was able to really walk through the last weeks of his life, seeing the funeral profession at a different level. And I actually had a friend, a dear friend, who was a funeral director who reached out to me about 6 weeks into this journey with my husband. And he said, "Is there anything that I can do for you?" And I knew immediately, yes, meet me at the funeral home because it's time for us to make our plans, whether we use them right now or we use them at a different time in our life. And so it just so happens I used that plan for my husband because he passed away 6 weeks after that. And so I was really blessed with the opportunity to learn funeral services from a totally different life-changing experience. And from that, I was so grateful to learn of an insurance assignment services company. And so what I'm doing right now at Funeral Directors Life is I'm working with a company that helps people, specifically funeral homes, specifically beneficiaries, get their money faster with insurance to pay for funerals, to pay for maybe the unexpected expenses that come up when the primary breadwinner of your family suddenly passes, like my experience. And it's an exciting program. It's an exciting opportunity because we get to be part of a solution for families. And it's really such a privilege to see funeral services from a different angle now than just on the outside, working with an insurance company in funeral homes. And so I know I'm not the only one who's ever had a life-altering experience where your perspective changes. Hundreds of thousands of people lose loved ones every day. But I will say to you that the services that helped me get through the experiences that I've learned along the way have just been incredible. And that really does start at a funeral home level.
I can't tell you how many people who are in funeral service in some capacity and were called there because of some life-changing experience. And to me, on a personal level, those tend to be the ones who really bring, I think, a little extra because they've been in those shoes of the families they've endured what the families are enduring, and I think they have a special sensitivity to things very much like funeral insurance assignment services and things like that, because that's not something you think about. I know that in the pre-need industry, that's something that we hear a lot when we try to talk about pre-planning, pre-arranging, pre-funding a funeral. We hear a lot that families will say, "Well, we have life insurance," and then there's a little bit of it's not quite connected, the two things.
You need the staff of a funeral home to help you sift through the many decisions that are being made. And when insurance was an option to pay for my husband's funeral, it was like a load was taken off. And I've done some research on the amount of emergency funding that Americans have saved. Any guess on what that amount might be?
I couldn't begin to guess.
Yeah, it is amazing because we spend a lot of money, but we don't really plan for the future well. And on average, most Americans have $400 saved for an emergency. So if you were to take my situation, when I kiss my husband goodbye, and then the next thing I know I'm planning his funeral, we didn't plan for a funeral before. If I only had $400 walking into a funeral home trying to plan a memorable service for him, I would have been sunk. And so that service of insurance assignments was so invaluable to have and to rely on. That my personal experience is, as I was sitting there and our daughter came with to help plan his service, I was able to plan my service, and I actually offered to pay my daughter's as well right then and there, because I knew that I had some money coming that would provide for that. And personally, in my instance, we were so blessed to have help that I didn't need that for the funeral, but I did need it for peace of mind. I did need it to figure out how I was going to pay next month's rent in a 2-income family that now is just a 1-income family. So that service that's provided by funeral homes is invaluable.
Can you describe that service? I mean, what kind of was the process in going from having an insurance policy to then having funds to pay for things that you needed?
I brought the insurance policy to the funeral home. I signed a piece of paper that says I'll pay a little bit of a fee for the company of CLAIMCHECK to process that. And do you know, in 5 days, that money was in the bank. So it was a very short period of time that I received the money. And not only was the funeral paid for, before it even happened, I had money personally in the bank to pay for things that I needed.
Do you think all funeral homes should accept insurance as a form of payment for a funeral?
You know, absolutely. So when we started talking, I was telling you that I work for Funeral Directors Life Insurance Company and have been for over a decade. And after my husband passed, I felt like I needed a little bit of a challenge, and I felt like my heart was for grieving families. So I was able to move into the insurance assignment area in my workplace. And so I talk with funeral homes every day. And every day I hear funeral homes saying, well, you know, it's just a headache to deal with insurance companies. So we're not taking insurance assignments. We're just taking a credit card or check or cash. That's it. And I feel that's such a disservice to families, because families long ago, I know my husband and I purchased life insurance and annuities years ago to pay for our funerals. We didn't think it would happen in our 50s. It happened, but it was there to do that. So I feel like you do a disservice to a family by not helping them see that insurance is a very feasible way to pay for a funeral, and it doesn't upset the apple cart of what you currently have in place for your finances and your style of living.
How valuable is it to have some sort of a device in place to convert insurance benefits into cash?
I think it's an option that funeral homes need to have. And the more funeral homes that I work with, some of them just don't accept assignments because it's too difficult to deal with insurance companies. They don't have the manpower. You know, last week, here we are in a COVID season, and last week we heard from an insurance company that we were trying to get an assignment funded for, and they said it would be a 4-hour wait time on the telephone. Well, if you're a funeral home doing your own insurance assignments, that means you take one of your staff that are already stressed and booked to the max, taking them out of that and having them hang on the phone for 4 hours to get an insurance assignment verified. That's just unreal almost. And so we're running into more and more of those issues where the funeral home didn't have time before, and they specifically now really don't have time with how difficult COVID is making things for businesses.
In your new role, what are you hearing from funeral homes about insurance assignment services, especially in, given today's environment?
Right. That's a great question. Do you know that some funeral homes don't take assignments like we've already talked about? And the funeral homes that do their own assignments, this has been just a crazy world with the COVID-19 situation happening in the year of 2020. And here we are in 2021 and it's still happening. And what's happening is insurance companies are just becoming very difficult to deal with. They're short-staffed. They're sending staff to work remote, so they don't have the proper tools to work on insurance assignments. They're delaying funding. And so what happens is if a funeral home is doing their own insurance assignments, they're having extra challenges with getting the funerals funded, which means they may not get paid on a funeral for 40 or 60 or 90 days. But yet they had to pay their vendors for a funeral to happen. And so that means they're doing business expecting to get paid 3 months from now. And most businesses can't function like that. And so what I hear from them is they're stressed. They need more help. I hear from them they don't want to have the headache of dealing with insurance companies. And so a service like CLAIMCHECK and Insurance Assignment Services makes all the sense in the world to take that stress off of the funeral home owners and funeral directors so that they can do what they do best. And that's work with the families, help them navigate the families in their time of greatest need.
What are some objections that funeral homes sometimes have when trying to figure out whether a service like this is valuable to them?
Cost is a big issue for sure. Most funeral homes have absorbed helping their families for years. They're just getting to the place where they're so stressed and they can't. The insurance environment has gotten so difficult that they really can't do that anymore. And so what it comes down to is, do we actually pay money for this service, or do we continue to pay our staff to deal with this service that are already overworked? So that's a primary objection. I also hear funeral homes that talk about customer service for companies like CLAIMCHECK. They don't get good customer service, and so they've paid for a service they don't feel like is valued. And then when they come onto CLAIMCHECK, we work very closely with them to ensure that they feel that this is a good expenditure of their money, that they feel that they're getting a good service.
Well, Nadine, I appreciate you spending your time here. Your story is awesome. I'm fortunate to have known your husband, John. I worked with him through many projects and with both of you guys, and I do appreciate you sharing that with us today. And thanks for coming in.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
If you would like to reach out to us about this episode or this series, please visit us online at funeraldirectorslife.com/FD Talks. There you can find information about this episode and submit any comments, suggestions, or feedback about our series. And we also welcome your ideas for future episodes. Join us next time on FD Talks as we explore ideas, insights, and solutions for serving families in a rapidly changing marketplace.